I walked around that for like 20 minutes trying to build confidence in myself. I didn't know what the answers were to the questions that they had. So it was kind of out of the need and out of the desperation of not wanting to look like a fool anymore, not wanting to be intimidated anymore, where I said, all right, I'm just gonna go and talk to the first person I see. It was actually two cops. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Paradox Kingdom. So I wanted to talk a little bit about my journey, about how I got into my love for apologetics, and it actually started in a different way than most people would probably think. So I actually started off as a battle rapper, and that started because just my love for music, but really my ability to use words to defend myself came because I didn't want to get bullied at my school. So I grew up in a real rough neighborhood. So elementary was real rough, middle school and high school as well. But I was able to use my words to intimidate people to not bully me. In first grade, I was best friend of the school bully. And as I got older, I just became very good at using my words to intimidate people. At the age of 14, I started to battle. Fast forward to when I was 20 years old and I became a Christian. And so I wanted to do almost the exact opposite of everything that I was doing because I felt that that's what it meant to be a Christian, right? I used to smoke weed. I don't smoke weed. I used to do X, Y, and Z, and I stopped doing that. And even my music started to change, and I literally did the same thing. I would used to talk about money, power, sex, and all the stuff that most rappers talk about. I became a Christian and I started to say, I used to do X, Y, and Z. Now I don't. I used to do that. Now I don't. I used to get high. Now I don't. I used to get drunk. Now I don't. And so a lot of it was testimonial. The Bible college that I went to, School of Urban Missions, was very big on doing evangelism. For those who don't know what evangelism is, basically going to strangers and telling them about the gospel, telling them about who Jesus is, telling them what he's done for them, how he died on the cross for them, and how to become a Christian. It was a requirement for us to go on the streets 4 to 6 hours every week, twice. I think it was on Tuesdays and Thursdays we would go out. Sometimes I would go on Fridays as well because that was part of one of my classes for youth group. And we would go out and just talk to anybody. It didn't matter who they were. We would talk to every person that we would see. And this is actually how I got into apologetics. So I was partnered with one of my friends. She was a girl. When we were going and talking to people, I was nervous. This is my first time going and doing it, and I didn't know what to say because I was a fresh Christian. And so we would go to a person, and I was like, "You lead the way, right?" I'm very introverted for the most part. I do a lot of extroverted things, but I don't like talking to strangers to carry on small conversation and things like that. I like teaching, I like speaking, preaching, YouTube videos and things like that. I'm getting better at it, but for the most part, that's not the way that I am wired to go and talk to strangers and have a conversation, especially if it's something I don't know. If we're going to talk about rap, if we're going to talk about art, or we're going to talk about anything that I already knew, I'm comfortable. But if we're going to talk about Jesus, I didn't want to make a mistake. I didn't want to say something wrong. I didn't want to be a heretic or a false prophet. So I was very quiet and I was just listening, and she was leading the whole conversation. This was pretty embarrassing for me because I'm supposed to be the one leading, and we're going two by two and everything like that. And I'm just there listening and looking and smiling, really. So it was kind of out of the need and out of the desperation of not wanting to look like a fool anymore, not wanting to be intimidated anymore, not wanting to be afraid anymore to talk to people because I didn't know what the answers were to the questions that they had. If I were to tell them the $1 million question, if you were to die right now, would you go to heaven? And depending on what they would say after that, I wouldn't know how to respond with that. I wouldn't know how to rebut what they're saying, or give them better advice or better wisdom, or help them understand that maybe what they're thinking is a bad idea of who God is. It's not a proper interpretation, or it's not a proper representation of who God actually is. And I didn't know how to do that. So when I went back to Houston, so I'm from Houston, I moved to California. I was in Oakland for Bible college. When I came back for Thanksgiving, I pushed myself to talk to strangers about God. For those of you who know Houston, I went to the AMC 30. I walked around that for like 20 minutes trying to build confidence in myself to believe that I'm going to talk to a stranger about God. And I forced myself. I said, I just got to talk to at least one person. I just got to talk to at least one person and ask them the $1 million question. And so as I was walking and pacing over and over, I said, all right, I'm just going to go and talk to the first person I see. So it was actually two cops. So I walk up to them and I say, hey, how you doing today? They're like, oh, we're doing good. How can I help you? And I just told them, I was like, look, this might sound strange, but I wanted to ask you a question. If you were to die right now, do you know how would you go to heaven? Do you know if you would go to heaven? And so that's kind of how I started the conversation. And there was two of them. One was a Christian. He didn't appreciate what I was doing. The other one, who wasn't a Christian, actually appreciated, and we had a great conversation, and which is strange, right? And so he was telling me, about his family. He had a son, he had a wife, and things like that. And at the end, I was like, man, can I pray for you? Even if you don't want to become a Christian right now, but can I pray for your safety and your protection? And he was very appreciative. He accepted it. We had a great conversation, while the other Christian cop was very upset. He's like, you shouldn't be doing this. I don't like this. You can't be doing this. Just leave people alone, is what he kind of said. And after that conversation, I actually got the faith and the courage, because it was such a great conversation. For the next like 45 minutes, I went and I talked to every single person in that area. And it wasn't a ton of them, but it was like a good 15, 20 people. And I was just walking and talking. I was like, hey man, let me ask you a quick question. If you die right now, would you go to heaven? And I got a lot of responses. Someone was like, yeah, just like me. So that's actually the question that started my journey. Someone asked me, actually a good friend of mine, he asked me the question. He said, if you die right now, would you go to heaven? I said yes, because I made my first communion, because I was baptized. I wasn't as bad as some of my friends and all these other things. I created all of these solutions and reasons why I actually thought that I was going to heaven, even though I was smoking, drinking, partying, fornicating, and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And I was not a very good human being. And now I was the one asking those people the same question. And this is kind of the start of where my love for apologetics grew. I was excited because I started to learn the answer to some of the questions that they had. And a lot of the questions that they had, they were some were sincere and some weren't sincere. They were just trying to create a question to stump me, versus other people that had a real concern and says, I don't know if I can believe in God when X, Y, and Z is happening, or I pray for this person and nothing happened, or look at the state of the world, or how do I know which God is real? And so we had a lot of great conversations. I started to research, I started to read books. I was in Bible college, so I learned a lot of information, but also I read the word a lot. I was always in the Bible. I was always researching because I wanted to know more. I wanted to be able to help and give an answer to people who are sincere and want to know about God. And this actually became one of my passions. From something that I was terrified of doing, actually became a passion that I would love to do. And we would actually use unique ways of evangelism. So some was art. Most of the time I was rapping. If I would see somebody that looked like they like rap, when I was going to Walmart, or just I was at the store or whatever, I would tell them, I was like, hey man, do you listen to rap? And they're like, yeah, I listen to rap. I was like, who's your favorite rapper? Like, oh, Lil Wayne or Tupac or whoever it was. And I was like, all right, man, that's cool. Like, I'm not Lil Wayne, I'm not Tupac, but can I spit a verse for you? And they're like, yeah, that's cool. So I would rap, and that was my opening. They would hear my song, I'm sharing my testimony where I was, and then we would get into that conversation. And I've done this with a lot of people. A lot of them were drug dealers, a lot of them were gangsters, a lot of them were, some were businessmen, just everyday people. And that was the way that I began to evangelize, or I would try to find some connection with something that they're wearing, or comment with them. I had a lot of conversation with a lot of different people, with Muslims, with Jews, with Mormons, Jehovah Witness, different types of Christians, atheists, agnostic, you name it. I've had conversation with so many different people, and it's been great. I love having these conversations. As I make these YouTube videos, I have, most of the people I have conversation with are non-Christians, and most of my videos I make them for Christians, but it is what it is. But that's where my love and my passion came for apologetics, being able to help people to understand. And really, when I do apologetics, I try This doesn't always happen, but I try to make sure that it is helping them to see a different perspective of what they think. They think God is a monster. He's a moral monster. He's evil. He wants us to stop having fun. He tries to give us punishments. He tries to give us rules and regulations, and he just wants to be in control of everything. And I try to help them understand the true picture of who God is, the good father. He's a good father and he cares about us. He loves us. He wants good for us. And yeah, sometimes he tells us no. And yeah, there's a lot of things that we can do because most of those things are harmful for us and the people around us anyway. But there was a time when, as I became better at apologetics, I started to look at people as a project instead of as a person. One of my cousins, he's an atheist, and I would say, "Oh yeah, my atheist cousin," or "Oh yeah, my Muslim coworkers," or "Oh yeah, this person," and I would label them as projects. My goal became winning them to Christ, and it became going back into the debating battle rap scene. Is I'm gonna destroy them so that they can love God, so that they can see that they're wrong and come and become a Christian. They can see, wow, these arguments are really good and I need to become a Christian. Like I didn't want to destroy them as a person, but I wanted to destroy the ideology that they were following. And so that was a big thing to get over because I'm so used to debating, I'm so used to battling, I'm so used to being on the stance of somebody else and telling them and showing them and giving them examples and evidence and all this stuff that I forgot that it was about love, right? The purpose was to show them who God is, to explain to him a different perspective. I remember someone once asked me, they were trying to stump me, and it's like, what would you say is the theme of the Bible? And I actually got this answer from a friend of mine. Um, and the answer that I said, it was love. The theme, the purpose of the Bible from beginning to the end is about love. It's a relationship, a loving relationship from God that he wants with humanity. He started with Adam and Eve. He wanted to have that relationship. They messed up. Then he went to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, to Moses, and then Moses led. And it was that loving relationship that God wants to have a people that are his people, that God wants to have a relationship with the people, and we always mess up. And then God sent Jesus so that Jesus can take away our sins so that we are not separated from God any longer. It's love from beginning to end. And when I told him that, he actually said, "Huh, okay, that's not what I thought you were gonna say." And it kind of stumped him and made him stop and pause and think. Um, Almost lose his train of thought because it wasn't just this intellectual thing, but it was giving him another perspective, a true perspective of who God is and what Christianity is about. Even though you know what we believe and you read the Bible, you can read it in Hebrew, you can read it in Greek, you can know it and memorize it and all this stuff, but you're missing that connection. If you're missing that connection, you're not going to get to know God. It's not just about rules and regulations. It really is about a relationship. And when we love God, everything else flows from that. But if there's any questions that you have or you're thinking about in apologetics or evangelism or anything, or even using your gifts and your talents for God, because that's one of my biggest desires is to help people to use what they love. That can be art, that can be writing, that can be sewing, that could be anything that you love doing, and using it for God's glory is one of the most important things that we were created for, to do what we love and glorify God, to know God and to then make him known. Put it in the chat if you have any questions, or maybe you are questioning things and you've heard certain things that you always wondered about but you never heard a response for. Please put it in the chat. I would love to have a conversation with you, and I would love to do some training on apologetics and some training on evangelism as well. If that's something that you're interested in, message me, and I would love to work on that, even one-on-one, or create some kind of course or some curriculum that you can follow, not so you can have an answer and formula, because that's how I am. I love answers and formulas. Tell me what to say that will stump the person. Tell me what to say to get them to the point where they say, what must I do to be saved? How do I become a Christian? How do I know for sure I'm going to heaven? But instead, how to have good conversations, how to make people to start thinking and to go deeper in those things and continue this conversation. But Until next time, peace.